Thank you very much for coming for this first Discord meeting, Ordinals doc. Happy to see you here. Happy that you found some time to join us to learn more about RayStone and to know what's the alternative meaning of LFG. Let's start with the idea behind the RayStone and what's so special about it. How did it happen? Where does it come from? So basically, RayStone was a fun project that was planned for collectors, community, to just give back more people who supported me, and yeah, just make something for fun. It's obviously also a tribute to Race, so my Genesis collection on Ordinals that I launched in February 2023, and to Ordinals Runestone, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, community on in like Web3 space or ordinal space for sure. Well, many artists also wanted to honor Runestone, wanted to honor Leonidas. So they prepared their artworks, open collections, illustrators, obviously prepared illustrations and so on and so on. Well, since I'm generative artist and I work with code and like my natural medium are algorithms, I decided to just release a generative collection in which every single output would be different. I was thinking about it like a souvenir, something for people to enjoy, to share with their friends, to share with their family, to collect it, to look for traits, to just have a lot of fun with it. And that's why I incorporated multiple features. I'm sure that most of you already read about them, many of you hunted for them. And one of the distinct things about RayStone is that I wanted the features to be easily recognizable. So, of course, we have glyphs, which are big, distinct, visible just next to the RayStone. We have engravings, which are here, a ring of runes around the stone. There's also transcendence, which is, well, harder to spot on still images, but still very visible in animation. Well, we have the 1%, the community discovered black and white, and so on and so on. What's kind of unique with this project is that all of these features are additive. That means that you can have multiple features. It's not like having one only. If you have glyphs, you can have a transcendence, you can have engravings. In extreme situation, you can have 1% in black and white and all of this together. So that's pretty special for a collection to just blend all of these traits into one artwork. Now, RayStone is a long-form generative art. So what does exactly long-form generative art means? The shortcut you can usually meet is LFG. We all know what LFG means, but there's a second meaning to it. So in generative art, we can distinguish like two separate approaches or two different approaches. One approach is to create an algorithm and then curate outputs, then maybe not good, but what's special outputs, what outputs do you like, what outputs are shouldn't be published, etc. There's no right or wrong, because with curating outputs, the algorithm allows for much wider variety. So there will be extremely interesting outputs, extremely wild outputs that wouldn't happen otherwise. However, there will be extremely bad outputs that shouldn't be published. With long-form generative art, artist publishes or releases the full algorithm. So the whole algorithm is out there and the outputs aren't curated. They are just randomized. They are picked by what's happening on blockchain. In case of RayStone, this is transaction hash. So the transaction hash determines your output. It determines what features artwork will eventually get. So collection is minted out and the collectors get to know the full scope, the full width, the full variety of the algorithm. And how does actually long-form generative collection work on ordinals? Well, for generative art, there are also two major mediums currently. One is JavaScript and HTML, sometimes HTML on its own, and there is CSS. I will focus on JavaScript because that's my medium of choice, that's my coding language of choice. So long-form generative collections are usually made through the mechanism of so-called mint on demand. Sometimes it's also called lazy minting. And it means that collectors, so you, inscribe artworks. The artworks are not inscribed by the artist. They don't exist prior to release, prior to mint out. Every single mint is, or inscription, just make them happen. This usually leads to a situation like questions like when ME, when magic, when indexing, when matrika, etc., etc. So if the artwork doesn't exist, it first needs to be brought to life to actually know about it and then mint it, right? So there are three ways of inscribing long-form generative collection. So the zero one that is not mentioned in this screenshot, the zero or the oldest version, so this is how, for example, Rays, Gleam, and Memflux were inscribed, is the full code. So when it was minting, collectors were inscribing full HTML file. And it was rather, well, by today's standards, we would call it simply expensive, because then each artwork is about 10 kilobytes, and that with current fees would cost a lot to put it on Bitcoin. However, when recursion came, we also had a very nice way to inscribe artworks by recursion. That means that artists inscribed JavaScript code, which is like the major part of the artwork, and collectors were inscribing only small HTML files, usually around 200, 300 bytes, which significantly reduced the cost. However, recently Gamma released this delegated feature, which is even bigger advancement, because now artists inscribes whole HTML file with script, and collectors just inscribe, well, you can call them instances, pointers to this file, which should behave, or which behave like separate inscriptions. However, it is very cost effective and very like blockchain size effective solution. And how to distinguish between, for example, recursive and delegated inscriptions. So here we have, I pointed it out because there were questions about why RayStone doesn't appear correctly on Ordio, or I remember there was one more platform. For your ultimate source of truth, to check what is right, what is within the protocol, what is happening as the protocol suggests, always check on ordinals.com. It's official protocol browser, and if something works there, it should work everywhere the same. So let's pick one of the RayStones, and this is one of the inscriptions. I'm sure you're familiar with this page. So here we have, of course, ID that we all know, inscription ID. Here's the metadata ID, so the number which is inscribed by Gamma. We have address of the owner, value. This is an interesting part. It actually means or shows how many satoshis are within this inscription. Well, that's not technically precise, but let's stick to that. We have sat number, and we have the magic one, delegate. So this delegate thing would be the same for all RayStones and would show the original artwork, would show the original inscription that was inscribed by me. What I wanted also to highlight here is the content length, 0 bytes, because each of the delegated inscription is just a pointer to this original inscription. It says 0 bytes, so almost no storage on blockchain. This is not entirely true, because obviously a transaction takes some storage, but well, it is simplified this way. So let's click on this delegate and see how it looks. Well, this is it. This is the original inscription inscribed on palindrome sat, and pretty much it. As we see here, here's no info about this being delegated somewhere. So this is the RayStone 2247 delegate of the original. Let's go back to presentation. And now we will move to the artwork itself and to talk a little bit about what makes this kind of unique and kind of special among, well, what I would say many generative collections on chain. So my algorithms, my artworks are usually very hardware hungry. They need a lot of calculation potential, a lot of power to actually make it happen. So I'm looking or searching for ways to optimize it. And to optimize this code, the artwork is built with 5 graphic elements, which are added or bond together step by step to come with the final RayStone. So the first one is the pattern. We will dive into it in a moment. The second one is a 3D model that together create the texture, and this texture along with WebGL channel 1 create final WebGL, oh not channel, maybe canvas 2, which is the final artwork. To the code. So here where comes the fun. So we will take a look at the code. It's not 100% the code that is inscribed because well, I adjusted it for the presentation purposes. So what you see here, what you see now is the pattern canvas. So if you were browsing through Gamma, you might have stumbled upon this. You might have seen these blue, red, pinkish, purplish outputs that are, well, quite distinctive. And this is my small Easter egg connected with my experience with P5.js. So P5 is a great library, but it doesn't handle WebGL very well. I mean, it can break, and it breaks pretty often because P5 is optimized a lot for better artist experience, but there are still some minor or major things that could be improved. So when I thought that, well, I assumed it might break. I didn't assume it will break, but I thought it might break. So I thought, why just leave the black screen when this is the first image? This is like the foundation of the whole artwork. Well, we might just as well show this thing and turn it into something fun, maybe a conversation starter, maybe an Easter egg, something like that. So as you can see here, there are multiple colors, and usually red and blues are dominant. Trust me, there are greens too, but greens are very low values that human perception doesn't pick them up. But these colors will be later used as data, as input for some shader animations, shader action to determine it. And just to make long story short and not dive too deep into the tech, let's say that red is responsible for offset, green adjusts displacement, and blue is responsible for brightness. So this was the first layer. The second layer that is also interesting that we have is the 3D model. As you can see, this 3D model has this red, green, blue color scheme. Because it also responds and well kind of is material for the shader. We will see that later together. So how to import 3D model into P5.js in Ordinals? Seems like a very simple task because in documentation of P5 it just says, okay, we accept STL files and OBJ files. Probably one of the most common file types for 3D there are. However, what isn't announced or what isn't so easy is the fact that P5 needs file extension. So it needs to know if the file is .stl or .obj. And with recursion, with how recursive ordinals work, we don't have that. We have just a long hash, long string, something like in the beginning, we have it, for example, here, content slash blah, 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 a long set of numbers. So we don't have this file extension. How to deal with it? And well, here came the idea to my mind to use a solution I used in 2015 when I was working on 3D printable objects. Just use text. Make a 3D object, a convert it to text, convert it to something you could read in your notepad. So this is the stone, pretty much. These are all of the coordinates, how all these triangles in 3D space, a bit optimized, a bit minified to fit better, to take less space. And here's the code that, part of the code, the function that uses this data to turn it into a proper P5 3D geometry that could be interactive. Yeah, pretty much it. So let's move to another layer, which is, how to call it, texture canvas. Texture canvas is the third layer, and well, there's nothing surprising here. Is just the merge of the pattern and the 3D model. Why is that layer needed? It is because P5 works differently with 2D imagery. So what you see in the background with lines, with colors, with shapes, and works completely different with 3D objects. So to merge it, we need a special layer. And we have our WebGL canvas. So this is the source. I will refresh it a few times. This is the source for all the colors of all of the lights. As you can see, it is animated. The colors are generated by, well, some complex mechanisms, some complex math. I don't want to dig into that because that would be very boring and very technical. Let's just say this is, yeah, this is the color layer, the animation layer, how the colors and lights change and mix, how they interact with each other, and how this is where your RayStone color comes from. And the final layer that blends all of it together is this one. So this is pretty much your artwork. This is pretty much how it looks. These are all of these layers merged together, and yeah, we can just go through these layers. Just let me uncomment this. And we can see that we have this round ring, we have the division, then we have the model revolving, all of it together, well, in this case, plus transcendence feature. We have colors, and this is the final output. Same with black and white, it depends on this complexity. Everything is driven by the same solution. And here, oh, one more thing that I forgot to say. Also, this layer is generated once only. So it looks simple, right? Because there are some lines, dots, circles, some runes. So it looks simple, but actually it takes quite a bit of calculations to render it every frame. So this is rendered once only and then stored in your memory to make it optimized and work on mobile phones. Oh, yeah. And the last thing in my notes is that this layer also adds some final touches like slight vignetting, a bit of contrast adjustment, a little bit of enhancing the lights, and this is the final artwork. A few days ago, we found this artwork stain that was published in Forbes. Well, you might see some resemblance if you look into it. If you look closer to RayStone, well, Stained was a one-on-one artwork from event in Art Basel, Miami. It was displayed there, but that was only a one-on-one artwork. Well, I think might be really curious to maybe develop it further and see what comes up. Okay, this is it. Thank you. That's all that I prepared to explain. Now let me look into the chat.
Thanks, Pavel, first for the presentation. That was very interesting.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. If you have any questions, just you can write them in the chat and you can ask them in voice. Anyway, it's good. Yes, RayStones are long form. That's a short answer. RayStones are absolutely long form art. That's an interesting question, Karmik. Have I thought about recursive runes linked to RayStone? I learned about it last night. actually. I saw a post on Twitter about recursive runes, and I was reading about it. Too early to say anything, really, because I just heard about this tech yesterday. But that's an interesting approach. Oh yeah, it was Alok's tweets. That's true. Can I touch a little bit about my art being displayed? Yes, my art was displayed. Let me just find it. My artwork. Well, okay, maybe let's do it this way. That would be not. I don't know if that's fun, but that's definitely educational. Yeah, this is my website. My website that is quite frequently updated. And if you want to see about any art that I created, most of my artworks are here. You can scroll, you can read. There are like separate websites for each artwork. There's about me part, more like for curators, art critics, etc. It's organized for galleries and museums in that matter. Exhibitions, well, yeah, so here's the art divided to exhibitions, NFT generative art, ordinals separately, 3D printing, interactive, other projects, and there's this tab press. If you check press, there are some events, some mentions, for example, by Gamma, the interview, but also some exhibitions like Inscribing Amsterdam, Anemone, that's a 1-1, or Stained in Miami Art Week at Art Basel, Miami. It was a part of an exhibition. It was, well, a cooperation between knowledge shows and Gamma. It was published in Forbes. And, well, here's the lineup of all artists and a few photos that I got and a few more tweets that about the event itself. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Sorry for the connection. I think it's just too much going on at the moment, but really, I encourage you to see this press tab to check it out on your own. Yep, thank you, Uzi.
Guys, here's now your chance to ask about the RayStone behind the scenes information. So don't be shy. Ask Pavel some questions.
Yeah, feel free to ask any questions about RayStones. Happy to answer. So the question is, since it points to some file, does delegation inscription means that the original file, the one it is pointing to, can be edited or modified? So yeah, the answer to this question is no, it can't be changed. Inscriptions by definitions are immutable. So whatever is inscribed is impossible to change. Even if you make mistake or something like that, it can't be changed. So no worries, RayStones aren't going anywhere.
Awesome. So I had a question. I've been going through the RayStones collection. It's a bit different from a lot of your other work, which is far more abstract and in the ether, versus RayStone, which is a lot more sculptural in a sense. I mean, I know that it's inspired by the Runestone, but it got me wondering if, because I know that you've got a background in design, so that I just wonder if there's any part of you that ever considered fabricating these RayStones physically, because some of them, like, they have this really beautiful translucency, and I just can't help but imagine you managing to get that, like, done physically sometimes.
I would say not at this moment. Yeah, I
Oh yeah,
was.
and by the way, I don't. Yo, listen, I don't mean for I don't mean it as a kind of a brand activation or anything. I
Mhm.
just mean more generally, like when you were creating this work, right? Did it ever occur to you how these would seem if they were made physically?
Well, my approach in art in general is very process driven. So I usually focus on the medium I'm working on. If it's digital, I usually plan it as digital because there are some perks, some special features that can't be or are hard to reproduce in real life. And it's the same in real life. Something you can create easily in real life is very hard to do in 3D, right? So when I was creating them, I didn't think of any any physical works. I was working on physicals for a long time, actually. And well, since I decided to become full-time artist, I decided to focus also for some time. I can't say how long, but I want to focus now on digital art because there's still so much to explore.
Understandable. I do love the commitment to exploring the digital format. It's quite cool.
Thanks.
A lot of people love like swinging back and forth, but yeah, it takes some courage to just switch over and go this deep in. So that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a decision. Well, there are many layers to this decision. One of them is that, well, I don't have a workshop right now. I have only my digital workshop that I can move easily. My real workshop stayed in the country I come from, in Poland. I don't live there anymore. Well, but if I ever want to come back to physicals, well, it's everything is waiting.
I have a question.
Sure.
I collect now a long time your works, and what I'm seeing always is like, for me it has always like interstellar vibes, like a lot of lights, and it looks for me always like galaxy. And what me interested in is there any inspiration you get it from interstellar films, or you looked in your past a lot of this kind of films, or like where comes this inspiration from? And is it like how I'm saying, like that you have a little bit like love to this style of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Really good. Yeah, I really love sci-fi movies. I mean, good sci-fi movies, and also Polish literature is quite famous for example, for Lem, the writer. But there are also multiple writers who are less known, but their ideas that they were exploring through the medium of sci-fi novels is just mind-blowing for me. So that's let's set this one like pillar, right? The second pillar is I really love science and scientific imaging. When I was doing my PhD, I was referring a lot to Willem Flusser, who was writing how technical imaging and technical images also changed our society and perception of imaging in our society. So for me, these like sci-fi and technical imaging, they blend together. Well, it's also filtered by my own sensitivity, my own ideas. Yeah, pretty much it. So sci-fi definitely +1.
I was asking, like, so if you would open a world like the Pavel Dutko world, would it look like this? Like the artwork you present us, is this your world? Like a door to your mind and how you see your world when you start creating your things?
That's a nice question. I love it. Good one. I don't know. I think there will be many smaller words, actually. One would be the one built with light, the other would be built with, I would say, matter, but like the essence of matter. Yeah, if that makes any sense. I would love to see a word built with ideas only. The word of meaning, the word only with light. Yeah. So I think there would be many words. Would it be possible to make a word of process? Like there's nothing but process. And so yeah. Long story short, there would be many smaller words inside a bigger universe. Greetings from Argentina. Thank you.
Pavel, to think about it, a world that's, I mean, just to kind of take the concept of process further, I feel like we live in that world if you think about it. This world is constantly rendering itself,
That's true.
doesn't stop.
That's
It
true.
goes on and on and on. It's gonna, I mean, if you think of it as a system, we're not gonna be around, but the rendering will go on. Our existence and our extinction is a part of that same process. So it's pretty cool. We're already a part of it.
That's true. That's cool idea. Thanks. Thanks for sharing.
Or maybe it's a good sentence to finish with "We love you, Pavel." Thanks.
Okay, I just got there.
Uh, this presentation. I think it was very interesting for me, and I hope for our collector it was also very interesting, and we will do that every month now. Yeah, let us know how it was, if you like it, if there is any topic wishes for the next workshops, and yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. If you have any feedbacks on anything you want to learn, you want me to talk about, well, even if it's not art related, like if you want to learn something about, I don't know, security, Bitcoin, we can do this kind of meeting. Because I know Bitcoin is intimidating, it's complicated, it's very technical compared to any other blockchain, but once you learn it and figure it out, I think it's the most pleasant one, if you don't count the fees. Okay, so thank you guys, thank you for coming, thanks for everyone who attended. Have a nice day, evening, afternoon, whatever your time zone is. Take care. Bye bye.